Hey, how are you doing? My name is Shakur and I'm going to talk about perfect internal state and how you can maintain a core internal state despite everything that goes on around you. And I'm going to break this down in a couple of stories that I read a long time ago. The first story is about the great sage Vyasa's son Shuk Dave. And Shuk Dave was really respected and revered in his time as somebody who had achieved perfection in his lifetime. He's also the narrator of Srimad Bhagavat, which talks about the glories of Vishnu and the glories of Sri Krishna. Now Vyas sends his son Shuk to King Janak to learn from him. And King Janak is known as Janak Videha. Videha stands for without a body. Janak was said to have achieved such mastery over his practice of living in the spirit that he was called Janak Videha, which meant that despite he was a king, he had no recollection or consideration of himself as a body. So when Janak knows that Shuk Dev is about to arrive at his palace, Janak makes some preparations. And when Shuk arrives to the palace gates, the guards don't even address him, and the palace guards don't even let him in. They give him like a small seat to sit outside the palace. Shuk Dev sits there for 3 days and 3 nights, and he does not react to anything that is happening to him. Now mind you, his father Vyas is revered and honored by the whole country, by the whole nation. And Shuk Dev himself is so well respected and someone who is considered that he's achieved the truth. But he's sitting there outside the palace for 3 days and 3 nights, and nobody has even bothered to even talk to him or address his presence. After the 3rd day, Janak sends his highest officials and ministers, and Shuk Dev is received in all glory like a chief guest. They take him inside the palace, set him up in the most luxurious suites, and he's just immersed in luxury for the next 8 days and 8 nights, where he's getting treatment like a prince. Although, even during those 8 days, Shuk Dev's serene face showed no sense of excitement, showed no emotion, and he had the same state internally and outside in the midst of all the luxuries that he was given inside the palace and when he was sitting outside the palace gates as a nobody. So Shuk Dev's state internally just does not change. After the 8 days of luxury, King Janak invites him to the court where there's festivities going on. There's dancer performing in the courtroom. There's ministers and officials and a huge crowd sitting around in the courtroom. Shuk Dev goes to King Janak, and King Janak gives him a cup filled with milk to the brim and tells him that he has to take 7 laps of the whole courtroom. Shuk Dev takes the cup and starts taking 7 laps of the whole courtroom, while there's people shouting in the courtroom, there's festivities going on, there's dancers who are dancing. Despite of all these distractions, Shuk Dev showed complete focus and walked 7 laps of the courtroom without a single drop of milk spilling off that pot. Basically, nothing outside of him could excite him or make him sad or even draw his mind's attention unless he really wanted his attention to go there. When Shuk Dev goes to King Janak and presents him the cup filled with milk without a single drop spilled, King Janak says, "What your father has taught you and what you have learnt yourself, I can only repeat. You have known the truth. Go home." Now this story is so beautiful, and I consider this story as one of my ideals in life, and I repeat it to myself over and over again just to know that there's this particular state, a particular internal state that I'm aiming for. What Shuk Dev showed over there is the absolute inner state control and the absolute frame control, where nothing can bother him inside himself unless he wants it to. Whatever happens on the outside happens on the outside, while inside of himself he's solid as a mountain, and his mind is unwavered through anything that happens outside. Now, this is a mindset that people need to adopt in their life, because having a solid internal state like that will make you somebody who is very hard to content with, will make you somebody who has such strong willpower that anytime you choose to go after a particular goal, nothing will bother you from taking the path that you want to take in your life. And it also translates when we interact with other people. If we are unreactive to how other people behave around us, and we have a very strong sense of internal state within us, other people start feeling attracted to us. Now, this also applies to relationship between men and women. And a lot of the times, women behave a certain way where men do not understand why they're getting emotional for no reason. But as men, you have to understand that the feminine energy behaves in a way that it is supposed to behave, while you as a masculine energy is supposed to control your internal state, your internal frame, and whatever that feminine energy is doing around you. If you do not react to it, that feminine energy only flourishes and only feels way more attracted to your masculine energy. But that's just one example. If you're able to maintain an internal state like that, there are no limits to what you can achieve as a human being if you're just unmoved to the challenges that come in your life. And I'm not saying that you don't have to calibrate or, adopt new strategies based on the challenges life throws at you. You have to do that. But if you're able to maintain your internal focus, your internal motivation, your internal state, and you're unmoved emotionally by the setbacks in your life, the failures in your life, or the challenges in your life, you will become somebody who goes after what they want and actually achieves their goals. And this translates into a lot of practical and real life things as well. Say you've decided to study tonight, and all of a sudden you get a text from your friends and they want you to go out. But if you have decided that that's your goal, regardless of what your friends are doing tonight, it is not going to impact you emotionally, and you're not going to feel left out. What we see a lot in the current times is that when we open social media and we see other people doing things that they're doing, we kind of have this fear of missing out, and we feel left out. And we start making decisions based on what other people are doing, or we start developing habits seeing what's going on around us. And due to all of this information overload, there comes a time when we end up losing ourselves, and where we are only pinging off, our emotional state is only pinging off and reacting to what's going on around us. So say you're somebody in the school and someone bullies you. If you have maintained an internal state that does not get changed to based on what's going on outside of you, you will get through that bullying. You will get through anything tough that happens to you. Say you're giving a public speech and you don't see the public react to you very well. But if you continue to focus on your internal state and your delivery of that speech, you will see that your state will start reflecting in the people around you. If you have an internal state that is unshakable, the people around you just have no other option but to start adopting your internal state, because it becomes very infectious. And there's a lot of parallels to this mindset and philosophy in the Western philosophy as well. Particularly Stoicism, which is, related to thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, and it talks about how we should maintain a standard internal state, and anything outside of us that we cannot control should not affect our internal state. Stoicism basically talks about the things that we can control, which is our reactions, our emotions, and our judgments. And we should only worry about controlling these things. Whereas anything that's outside of us, since it's not in our direct control, we should not let that affect things that go on within us. And the ideal Stoic philosophy is to not let the external events change anything that's internal, which is our judgment, our character, our reactions, and our morals, our virtues to a particular situation. And with Stoicism, there's this story of this archer named Aeneas. And Aeneas is called upon this great competition which is held by the chief of his village. This is an archery competition, and the prize is very high for this competition. When Aeneas gets there, he's determined that his years of practice are going to help him hit the bull's eye. The first time Aeneas takes his shot, there's a wind gust and that kind of wavers his arrow and it ends up missing the mark. The crowd feels very shocked at this since they believe that Aeneas would be able to hit that particular target. Aeneas takes his second shot, and as he is taking the shot, there's someone in the crowd who murmurs and he loses his focus momentarily and once again ends up missing the shot. Now it's the third and the final time that he gets to actually hit the bullseye. There's wind that's blowing and there's people in the crowd shouting and already talking. There's a lot of distractions, but the archer's focus is only on controlling what he can control within himself, which is his focus and the way he releases his arrow. He controls his inner state, and despite all the distraction, this is the time that he actually makes the shot. The archer over here is not happy that he won the competition, but he was more happy that he was able to control his internal state despite everything outside of him. When the king asked him that how he was so unmoved with all the distractions and everything that was going on outside of him, the archer replied to the king that the outcome was never mine to control. The wind, people shouting, or if there's a movement in target, hitting the target, these are things that are outside my control. True victory is accepting whatever comes with grace, knowing that I've done my part. And I get it, all this philosophy is very, very difficult to actually apply in life. But if you make that as a goal, if you repeat these stories to yourself and you are aiming for perfect internal control, your brain, your biology, and your body will start supporting you in achieving this goal. So you have to understand that although it is a tough ideal, but what's the point of life if we're not even aiming for a tough ideal? So we have to aim for perfect internal control, and we have to aim for these ideals, and we have to constantly repeat tales like this inside our head. The more they cross our consciousness, our subconscious starts to accept ideas like this, and then our brain starts to develop the links within itself that it needs to develop. Our biology starts supporting us in actually achieving our goals.